welcome everyone. Tonight I have the astounding MICHELL, and I brought her here today because as a consultant for many tech startups, I have found that entrepreneurs and founders often spend very little time researching and understanding the financial impacts to starting their business. I've also seen a lot of folks set themselves up for failure because they did not ensure their businesses were started with their feet on firm financial ground. Furthermore, running a startup can be mentally and financially challenging. Exploring the intersection of tech and financial planning can offer insights into maintaining financial wellness, managing stress related to financial decisions, and achieving a balance between personal and professional finances. So today, we're honored to have a true powerhouse in the realm of financial empowerment and wealth creation, none other than Michelle Robinson.
Hello,
Hey.
hello. How are you?
I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited for this audience because you're not the ordinary wealth strategist, right? You're a financial advisor, a corporate consultant, a community leader with an unwavering commitment to addressing economic disparities in often neglected and underserved communities.
Yes.
Your life work revolves around breaking the cycle of economic suffering and providing solutions for families and companies so that they can achieve long-term financial security. So I wanted to like spell out your accolades and really like help the audience understand that from this standpoint you have been like a powerhouse in making sure the community is stronger. And that's kind of like the driving force behind Glitch, Grind, Glow. There's a tech gap and there's financial gaps. And I felt like this would be the perfect intersection for us to help people understand, how to overcome those gaps in our knowledge and our awareness.
Yes. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for that introduction. And I absolutely love this connection because even in my previous, I don't want to call it life, but when I was working for corporate and I was a C suite executive, I was a chief diversity officer. And one of the challenges that we faced, and it was an industry wide challenge, was getting women, but specifically Black women, into tech.
Absolutely.
So this is awesome.
And one of the things that I've found is, a huge barrier of getting people into tech, especially if we're talking about tech entrepreneurship, is half the time we don't even know how to structure ourselves financially. How do we separate, business expenses from personal expenses? And I struggled with that. When I kind of delved out into my world to be a consultant, I didn't even know where to begin. I was on LegalZoom and I was Googling everything. And I think, I made a few missteps along the way because I wasn't well informed. So I'm just so happy for you to be here, for you to answer questions for our audience about financial freedom, period, even if you're not trying to be an entrepreneur or business owner. And then furthermore, we'll kind of delve deeper into that.
Sounds good to me.
So before we dive in, I want to like take a little bit of a step back and understand more about what led you to become a wealth strategist. As you said, you gave us your background and you've had, experiences in the C-suite and diversity. But how did you decide like, okay, this is what I want to be, a wealth strategist right now, and I want to help folks?
Okay. So to answer that, I got to take you back a little bit.
Okay.
So I am originally from a town city called Salisbury, Maryland, over on the eastern shore of
Yep.
Maryland. And I came from a working poor family. Now, my parents, grandparents would completely deny that because they worked so hard to be able to provide for their families. But at the end of the day, we were a working poor family. My father was a taxi cab driver, and my mother was a cook. And we didn't have discussions about money. The only thing that I knew about money was that every single Christmas there were going to be a flood of presents under the Christmas tree.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about like in our small house that we had, that whole living room floor was probably like halfway covered up with Christmas gifts. And I knew that I was going to get all of the latest Barbies, Barbie Dream House,
Yeah.
Barbie 57 Chevy. My sister, who's 6 years older than me, was going to get all of the cool Jordans and sneakers and cross colors and all that different stuff. And then my mother was one of six children. She had five brothers. And so all of my uncles, every single Christmas, was going to get a pack of tube socks and a flannel shirt. And
Absolutely.
that's what I knew about money, was that you made
Right.
money and you spent money. You use money to buy stuff, to buy things for yourself, to buy stuff for people. So when I turned 18 years old, I made a decision that I wanted more. And that was fueled by watching the Cosby Show. I grew up on the Cosby Show. I grew up looking at Claire Huxtable, and I knew I wanted to be a professional woman. I knew that I wanted to, have what they demonstrated to be wealth to me at that time. So the only way that I knew how to do that was to get out of Salisbury. And that meant for me joining the army. And so I joined the army, which for someone like me should have been the sweetest financial deal. You don't pay no rent. You got free room and board. You get free meals. You wear uniforms the majority of the time. So
Right.
the clothes that I came with should have been just fine. But some kind of way, Candace, I found myself in Augusta, Georgia, bouncing checks. My debit card was declining. All of this different stuff was going on, and it shouldn't have been happening. But when I looked around to try to find somebody to help me, there was nobody there to help me. There was nobody there to guide me, to help me navigate and understand my finances, which is why I named my company Just Here to Help, because I made it my business when I finally got to a place of financial freedom and understanding how money works. I knew that I just was going to be like, I'm just here to help. And help is an acronym for helping everyone live prosperously,
Oh, I love
but
that.
also being a chief diversity officer, working in the civil rights industry for years. I spent most of my career after the military working in civil rights or diversity, equity, and inclusion, and just seeing the different impacts that, happen with communities, specifically the Black community. And a lot of the negative impact, a lot of the adverse impacts, the disparities that we've seen could have been avoided if there were wealth or money that people had that they could use to influence. Because what I found is that the people who always had a seat at the table were people who had wealth, were people who had
Right.
money. And so from that experience, I'm like, I have to do something about this. And so I wanted to marry my background along with my training in finances. I'm also a licensed life insurance and annuities broker, along with my diversity, equity, and inclusion experience to become a wealth strategist to help people essentially be empowered through financial literacy and wealth management, and to give us access to wealth management, because a lot of companies don't want to talk to us if our net worth isn't three, four, five, $10 million.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that you said that really resonated with me. And I feel like I have a lot of friends who are kind of in the same boat. I have a large population of folks where we're making more money than, the generations before us. We're six figures and all of those things, but we are still struggling to make good decisions and to protect that wealth and to grow that wealth. And so you might be making the six figures, but you're still living check to check
Yes.
and just making really, not good financial decisions that'll set you up for future success, right?
Right.
And that's like this new population of people, I feel like, in this generation here, where we're making more money but we're not making better choices, right?
I agree. And I believe it's a systemic issue because a lot of us didn't grow up with a whole lot. And
Yep.
so now that we have access to money and we have our own money, we do what we couldn't do before, and that's spend it.
Yep.
And a lot of folks in our generation, we want to look like we got money. We want everybody to know that we have money. And then, even for those who may not really have it, we still want to have that appearance of
Yep.
having money. And social media doesn't make it any better because everybody's on social media appearing to be living their best life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's impacting the decisions that people are making financially.
Absolutely. I've fallen in the trap, and I completely agree. We won't talk about some of the
Yeah.
personal decisions I regret,
Uh-oh.
but I completely agree with that.
Yes. Mhm.
All right. So, your mission statement is intriguing: to bring wealth and value to the world. Can you elaborate on what this means to you and how it shapes your approach to wealth management?
Yes. So when I say to bring wealth and value to the world, this embodies my commitment to ensuring that I'm making a positive impact on the lives of individuals, families, and communities. For me, when I speak about wealth, it goes far beyond monetary assets. It's not just about money, but I'm looking at the holistic, well-being of an individual. I'm looking at financial empowerment because even based off of the little bit that we talked about behaviors and trends that people have with making poor financial decisions, it's not enough just to have the money, but you have to have financial empowerment. You have to have the education. And so, I'm very focused on creating value that goes beyond a balance sheet and what's in your bank account. Because if you don't have the proper mindset around money, you're going to find yourself caught in a vicious cycle of debt, of not being able to grow your cash, of always finding yourself having to do more, do more, do more in order to get more, when in fact our money should be working for us and we shouldn't be working for money. And so my approach to wealth management and financial services is prioritizing strategies that not only help people with financial growth, but it also aligns with my values, which are family. So I'm very focused on helping families be empowered financially, innovation, looking at different ways that we can accomplish our goals and strategies as opposed to doing the same things that people have always done. I also focus on empowerment, as I mentioned, results, being compassionate, and then excellence. And so when I talk about bringing wealth and value to the world, I'm speaking about all those things, that go beyond just the money, but also the character of an individual as well.
Absolutely. I think, one of the things, again, resonates with me very closely is sometimes I didn't know who I was without access to money. And I've had ups and downs with my career and have had to hit the reset button, a few times.
Mhm.
And every time it was like, well, if I don't have this high paying job or if I don't have this access to money, like, who am I? And so to me, that's really valuable to figure out, like, how do you bring your values to the table and shift your values as you invest in that part of your life and into that part of your world.
Yes. And, again, it has to be looked at holistically
Mm-hmm.
because if I am broken on the inside, if I have challenges that I'm dealing with within myself, it doesn't matter how much money I have. I'm
Yep.
going to find a way to squander it. If I have issues within myself and I have challenges managing $100,000 or $10,000,
Mm-hmm.
me getting $1 million is not going to fix whatever's going on inside of me, or should I say with my mentality and how I view money. So it's all about how you view and how you see yourself and the money as well.
Absolutely. So, one thing you said a few seconds ago, you hit on the word innovation. And we hear innovation all over the world in tech. Like, that is, tech, innovation, those two things go hand in hand. So, can you tell me what does it mean in terms of the context of wealth management or wealth creation? And are there specific strategies or approaches you find particularly innovative in the wealth management space?
So, when I speak about innovation as it relates to wealth creation and in this financial empowerment space, I'm speaking about ensuring that we are leveraging new ideas, technologies, and strategies, which ultimately will optimize, our financial growth and security. Innovation and wealth creation, it involves a forward thinking mindset. And an example of that is moving beyond the mindset of having money and placing it into a savings account. It's something as basic as that. Because from a historical standpoint, we think that saving money is the way to financial freedom. Saving money is the way for us to have a wonderful, fabulous retirement, when in fact, that's not reality. That's actually an outdated way of thinking. So when we start looking at innovation and looking at what's the new way to do things, the new way to do things is to, for example, leveraging cash value life insurance in order to create retirement income, create capital to invest, to pay off your debt. Looking at a product that people don't typically commonly think about when it comes to finances and wealth, looking at it and seeing how you can leverage it. Also, looking at how to utilize data. Data is so important, especially me as a wealth strategist,
Mhm.
analyzing market trends, looking at different data, looking at different risks, and looking at all those things to tailor an actual investment strategy for my clients. Everything cannot be a one size fits all solution. Everything really should be tailored to meet the needs and the goals of a client. And being able to have real time data, being able to review market trends is something that we're able to utilize and leverage in an innovative fashion to ensure that people are meeting their goals. There's one other thing that I haven't been utilizing this, but I plan on implementing this into my practice. And that's the concept of robo advisors. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but with AI becoming a thing now and us really trying to figure out how to be able to serve more people with less manpower, utilizing robo advisors and just AI to be able to assist our clients in
Yep.
real time is another innovative solution that I believe is changing the landscape of wealth management.
That's so awesome to hear that because, a few years ago, I set myself up to say, you know what, I'm going to, adopt one of those robo advisors. And there were so many offerings out there. And I was like, I don't know how to navigate which one's better, like how to choose. So I think this is a great place to like understand with this community that like they are trusted, that they're the ones that exist out there. And so I haven't looked very far into which ones to use and things like that, but I feel like that could be an even another topic that you and I can talk about
Yes.
in the future and really give people some understanding as to how to choose the appropriate one.
I would love to have that conversation. That would be great.
Awesome. And I know like, I don't want you to give away all the secrets for free, but what I find people ask the most of the time is like, I don't have a lot of money to, and you talked about savings and people's traditional way of trying to build their wealth is like, I'm going to put money in a savings account, but I don't have that much. Like I got $200, I got $150 a month that I can spare. So, not necessarily, the saving strategy, but what would you say your strategy would be for someone who is like, I got limited excess income? Where do they start? Like, what's the best thing to try?
Well, Candace, you would actually probably be surprised that the majority of people, regardless of what their income is, probably says some of the same things. And that's, I don't have enough money to
Mm-hmm.
invest. I don't have enough money to plan for my future. And so, where I believe that people need to start off at is actually by prioritizing budgeting. And that word is, it's like it's the B word. It's the word that people don't like to talk about nowadays. And if people
Absolutely.
were to be honest, and if I were to do a survey and be like, do you actually have a budget that you utilize every single month to identify how much money you have coming in, how much money you have going out? Are you tracking your spending? Most people, if they would be honest, they would have to say no. And so that's the first place that people need to start with. Having a limited income, honestly, most people have more money than they think they have.
Mm-hmm.
Issue is they don't know where their money is going. And, my personal financial advisor, Dr. Lynn Richardson, she often says that money, it comes into our lives, but if we don't pay attention to it, it'll walk away from us quietly and we will have no idea where it went to. And so that's what's
That
happening
part.
to a lot of people is, they're living by this what she calls the check to Monday syndrome, which is you get paid on Friday, you got enough money to pay your past due bills, you go out and you spend money on eating out and doing all these things, and then you don't have any money by Monday, as
Right.
opposed to living from check to check. It's like check to check is out the door now. People just barely make it to Monday, from Friday to
Right.
Monday. And so
Right.
prioritizing, creating a budget, making sure that you understand what your income, your expenses are, and where your money is going. Because I'm willing to bet if you would begin to track your expenses, if you would really look at your credit card bills and see where your money is going, that there is money that you would be able to reroute, to be able to leverage and utilize to do other things with, like saving, investing, and so on. So the first thing would be to prioritize budgeting. The second thing that I would encourage people to do is to establish a emergency fund. So before we even get to the investing and doing all of the other things, make sure that you have an emergency fund. And again, a lot of people will say, well, J. Michelle, I don't have the money to put away 6 months of living expenses, because that's the standard, right? That you
Right.
should save at least 6 months, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Well, start with trying to save $1,000. Get to your first $1,000 first, which is way more attainable than trying to do the 3 to 6 months, and then build up from there. Then I would tell people to utilize some type of automated savings or transferring system so that you are automatically paying yourself when you get paid. You should be saving no less than 10% of what you are making every single time you're getting paid, or every single time you're getting some type of money. And that 10% should be going into a high yield savings account, not just a regular credit union that's going to pay you barely 1% interest, but
Right.
there's accounts like American Express Savings, and there's some other ones that's
Yeah.
out there that'll pay you 4 or 5% interest. So if you're going to do a savings account, do something like that. I mentioned life insurance earlier. Start with trying to invest your money in ETFs as opposed to buying
Okay.
individual stocks. And what an ETF is like a packaging of different stocks. And I always would say go for a tech stock. There's one that has like Apple, Microsoft, and there's a couple of others in this ETF. Tech stocks are always great stocks to get, and they're not a lot of money. I mean, you mentioned somebody may say they only have a couple of $100. You can buy a stock with a couple of $100. You may be able to buy a few of them
Right.
depending on which ones you pick. So those, because I could go on and on and on, because this is my thing, right? So those are a couple of strategies. I'll pause there just in case you have some additional follow-up questions, or if there's something specific you want to dig into.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned was the automatic savings like apps, and I think the every bank probably now has the roundup, where
Yes.
if you round up your purchase to the whole dollar, they'll save off. I downloaded this app a few years ago called Digit, and I forgot that that thing was even siphoning money out of my account. And one day I went to go back and look at it, and I had saved miraculously like $3,000. And I was like, "What?" I completely forgot that thing existed until one day I saw it started. It had some type of algorithm where if you were closer to your deadline, like you were saving up, and at the time we were saving up for our wedding. And if you're closer to your wedding deadline, it would start more aggressively saving
Mm,
money for
okay.
you. And one day, so it snatched $200 out of my account. And I said, "What is this thing snatching money out of my account?" And I went and found it and I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's that app I set up years ago." So, like, I definitely thought that was valuable. I would say track it
Yes.
better than I did,
Yes. And
and
you know
possibly
what?
use your bank. But
That is so true. And you know what? You just, when you were just saying that, something else just jumped out at me for people who may not feel like they have a certain amount of money. You
hmm
need to check and see like what subscriptions you're paying because a whole bunch of people are paying money for
yes.
subscriptions that they don't even use. You done signed up for something that told you that the first 3 months was free and you had
And now, yep,
to go back and cancel it and you forgot to cancel it and you're just paying out that money and that's money that you could be
right.
utilizing to round up and save as you mentioned. It's money you could be utilizing to get an ETF,
hmm
to buy a stock, to buy a REIT. There's all different types of things that are out there that you don't need a whole lot of money to get started.
Yeah. And the other thing that you touched on was the budget thing. I think a lot of times people, and everybody knows like a budget is a good thing to have. It's a good tool, but people don't want to get realistic with how much do I actually spend eating out? How much do I actually spend shopping and buying randomness at Target and CVS? Things that aren't even like a tangible, like it wasn't a large purchase you made. It's all the little ones added up, and you don't really want to know because then that'll force you to have to check that
Yes.
behavior, and you can't just go willy-nilly swiping your card and going everywhere. And so I remember when again, we were getting ready for our wedding and we're trying to like budget out our lives and purchase for our home, and it was not pretty. And when we started to analyze some of the things that we were just frivolously spending money on, I mean, Dunkin' Donuts was getting hundreds of dollars from me in a month. And I was like, I'm a little bit embarrassed. So
Listen,
I
Candace, the only reason
completely,
why Dunkin' Donuts don't get my money is because we don't got one over here. Because if I was
right.
over there on the East Coast, I'd be tearing them up.
I'm shocked how much money I spend at Dunkin' Donuts in a given month. Absolutely appalled. And got every Keurig, French press, drip coffee pot in my house, but I'm still spending 100 and something dollars a month at Dunkin' Donuts.
Yep, that's
I
us at
didn't change,
Starbucks.
but I do know it, and I'm, I accepted it, and I moved forward and added it to as a line item in my budget.
And that
But
is the key. That's
you
the
said
key.
what?
I said that's the key though, because see, I will never tell people that you just shouldn't do that. If you
Right.
can afford to do it, I absolutely believe you should enjoy the fruit of your labor. My
Mm-hmm.
husband's thing is he gonna go to Emerald Smoothie. He want a smoothie 5 days a week. We go to the gym. He going to
Right.
buy a smoothie. You know, I like Starbucks. Starbucks is the thing over here.
Yep.
We don't have a Dunkin' Donuts, but it's not taking away from us being able to save, being able to invest. We're not in debt. So it's all good. And I ain't gonna talk
Yeah.
about when I looked at our credit card bill one time and seeing how much money we spent a month eating out. I'm not even gonna tell y'all that
it's
because
it's
y'all know.
appalling. You're like, what do we actually eat in the house if we spend this much money eating outside the house?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, that's funny, but when you rip the covers off and kind of look at, dead in the eyes, like us establishing a budget really helped us kind of accomplish a lot of our goals. So I agree that that's like the basis and the key that helped us get started.
Yeah.
All right. So next question. I feel like you've hit on this, so I don't want to. If we don't have a lot to add to it, you've talked about a lot of innovative things. So, are there any other trends or emerging technologies that you find interesting or impactful? And again, if you've already exhausted the list, you've touched on a lot of things.
Well, I
Completely up
got
to
one.
you.
I got one that I'm very
Okay.
excited about because I am. It's a part of my vision to be able to get into this place, and that's virtual reality. Um,
Okay.
I believe that there is a place, and people are already doing it for financial services to be offered in virtual reality. We see all this different stuff in the metaverse. People are purchasing real estate and doing all these different things. So I believe that the introduction of financial advisors and even being able to be in virtual reality and showing people how to invest and having those conversations in that space as opposed to doing it over a Zoom or in Teams, but actually being in like virtual reality, that's coming. I just want to let you all know that that is absolutely on the horizon. It's becoming a thing.
Yeah, that's something I can't even imagine. Like, so are we going to meet with our advisor in virtual reality? Is he walking us through like the graphs? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, there'll be some of that. So that would just be like, for example, me purchasing the space, and I'm just going to use the metaverse because that's the only one that I'm, familiar with.
Familiar.
But me purchasing the space within that platform and creating like my business there, like having a corporate office,
Oh, that's
and
so
your
awesome.
avatar, yeah, would be able to like come in and engage with me, and we would be able to do business there. And it may not even necessarily be like real business. Like people are really operating in virtual reality, and it's like its own set. I mean, it's virtual
Right.
reality. It's not real, right? But I believe that there's a space in virtual reality, where you're going to start seeing more investing and real estate transaction within the platform, because people are already doing it from the real estate standpoint. Like I saw, I don't know if you call it property or what, but like space on sale in the metaverse
Oh my
that
God.
people actually purchase. It has its own currency. So
Wow.
that being said, there's going to be a need for financial advisors and wealth management with inside of virtual reality. And I'm just waiting for things to settle down some and me to find somebody who can build this out for me, because I know it's going to be a thing. So you're a tech person. If you know
Yep.
people who are into VR, please send them my way because I want to have that conversation.
I know a few. I'm not like that's not my area of expertise, but I do know quite a few. And now I'm gotta be like, do we need to build something around this? And like make a space for other people who are entrepreneurs in the space that would like like you said, real estate, a financial and wealth management specialist. That might be something that we could get into.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, moving into the space specifically for like a lot of the entrepreneurs that we have in our space, you've undoubtedly worked with various entrepreneurs. What advice do you have for those who are trying to establish themselves as entrepreneurs, especially when it comes to building and managing their wealth and their financial future for themselves and their business?
So I do quite a bit of work with business owners. And one of the things that I have found out is a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, initially they have an idea and they just go out there and they start a business and they start just trying to push forward, and they don't have all of their systems in place.
Right.
And so, one of the very first things that I work with my business clients on, who are coming to me even from a wealth perspective, is making sure that they have a business plan. Because again, a lot of folks just they have an idea and they know what they want to do and they just start doing it, but they don't have any goals. They don't know who their target market is. They don't know what their revenue streams are, financial projections. They're like, what's that?
Right.
So
I got
that's
an idea and that's all I got.
and yeah, and that's actually what a business plan is for. A lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to be going and trying to get capital from a bank. I don't need a business plan. You need a business plan for you, whether you realize it
Right.
or not. So creating a comprehensive business plan that's a roadmap to guide your business decision, and make sure that as you are creating your goals, that then you're like making sure that you have financial goals and strategies attached to that. And then one of the main issues that I'm seeing, and I think you said something about it earlier, was separating personal and business finances. Because a lot of us were like a one woman, one man shop
Yep.
when we start off. So we're using our own personal money, and we're using our own personal bank accounts, and we're using our personal credit cards. And it's so important for accounting purposes, and even for the purposes of if you do decide that you want to get capital or business credit, that you have a clear distinction between your personal finances and your business finances, making sure that you have a dedicated business account. All of these things streamline your financial management, and it helps you track your expenses more effectively. This is important. We're in tax season. A
Yep.
lot of us business owners, are banging our head up against the desk because it's like this tax season. And, some people haven't managed tracking their expenses as business owners. There are a lot of deductions that we have the ability to take, but it takes work for us to keep track of all of those expenses and keeping them separate from our personal expenses. So that's very key for entrepreneurs as well. Then, making sure that you have emergency monies for your business. Always make sure that you diversify your income streams. I just don't believe in relying on one source of income, even though
Hmm.
I am a business owner. I have multiple streams of income, and I would encourage any other business owner to do that. And that doesn't mean that you have to have all these businesses, these different businesses. What it means is you have your business, and you may want to ensure that you have a stock portfolio, and that you have stocks that give you dividends back. But making sure that you have those different income streams, and prioritize retirement planning, because you know what, business owners, we don't get no pension.
Right.
We don't get no
Right.
pension, right? And I'm not working until I drop dead.
Right.
So we need to have a retirement strategy, and a lot of entrepreneurs aren't thinking about that. You need to set up your own like IRA, and there's different things that you can do. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I need our people to really understand that life insurance is a tool that we can leverage.
Right.
Get you a properly structured, and I got to say it like that, life insurance policy, because as a business owner, you need life insurance. And then you can plan for retirement and have capital all in that one product. So those are just a couple of things that I recommend for budding entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs.
Yeah. It's a lot of information and it can be like really overwhelming. And so it's like, more power to people that want to start their entrepreneurship journey and don't actually go find someone to help walk through this with them. I was one of those people. It was rocky. Was running into all kinds of problems. Things like you said, I wasn't separating out my business accounts, and so I was having trouble tracking and at tax time with my tax advisor. It was a hot mess. Like it took me years to even just say, okay, I'm not going to make any purchases using my personal debit card. I'm going to go get a business checking and savings account, a line of credit. And then I'm going to be very strict with only using those cards to make purchases because I was unwinding finances at tax time where, oh yeah, I forgot I used that to pay this thing over here. And it was just chaotic.
Mhm.
And and I ran into a lot of issues and problems, and things weren't accounted properly. So I completely like, for those people who want to start a business, I think you should give Jay Michelle a call, because, there are things where you can do it on your own, but it's the hard road to toe.
It
So,
is. And you don't have to do it by yourself.
yeah.
I mean, certainly I'm available, but I'm going to tell you all a secret. Every
Oh,
single state typically has some type of state body that's like an Office of Minority Women Owned Business type, organization. And then there's also that's attached to those are firms that provide technical assistance to small businesses, women owned businesses, minority owned businesses, and you can get what's called technical assistance for free. And while that word may seem like technical assistance, I don't need tech help. No,
right.
that's just the terminology that's used from a
Yeah.
governmental perspective that deals with equipping businesses with what they need. And those businesses get hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to help small businesses, and you can get that help for free.
Wow.
There's people who work with me in the state of Washington that don't pay me directly. They go through our organization. It's called Tabor 100. They go through Tabor 100, and they request me. You have to have a Washington UBI, but they get to work with me for free. And the organization pays me, and I work with them to create their business plans
Wow.
and to help them create their financial plans and all of those different things. And it's free of charge to them. I'm almost 100% sure wherever you're watching me from, they have a similar organization in your region.
That's awesome. And I that is something that like speaks to, the community building, right? Cuz no one has ever said that to me and explained that to me, and that's available. Even I know quite a few other minority or women owned businesses, and they might not have access to that information, or maybe they do, but they didn't share it, right? So it's one of those things where it's like that just, really speaks volumes to the community building that
Yes.
you believe in, and the value system there.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, entrepreneurship comes with challenges. What do you think are like maybe the one or two most common pitfalls you've observed when managing finances for entrepreneurs? Is that the not separating out the finances, or what do you think might be the most common?
That's a main one. But since we touched on that, I'm going to jump
Okay.
to neglecting financial planning because I think people have an idea. They want to accomplish that idea. And then we go into focusing on the day to day operations of our business. And we don't do those long term projections, specifically as it relates to financial planning. And this results in a lot of missed opportunities. It results in business owners ending up in debt because you
Mm-hmm.
failed to plan financially. So now you're relying on credit cards to be able to pay for different business expenses that you may have. And then, that failing to plan financially is why I have several business owners now who are over the age of 63, 64, 65, and they really don't want to continue to be like hands on in their business day to day, but they have to because they failed to plan financially. So I would say that one of the biggest challenges is failing to have a financial plan. The second one would be that tax planning, which can go back to that separating your funds, but we have to recognize as business owners there's like hundreds of tax deductions that we have access to, that the IRS code gives these provisions, and we have all of these like deductions. I'm going to tell you this, regardless if you're a LLC or a C Corp, you need to make sure that you have a home based business as well, because
Okay.
that will open up the door for all kinds of tax write-offs. And just being a consultant in itself, you don't have to have an LLC to do that. Not saying you shouldn't. I do consulting. I have an LLC, but I also have a home-based business. But you want to make sure that you are taking advantage of these things, that you're planning, doing the tax planning. Track your mileage. When you're doing business, make sure that you're tracking your mileage. If you are having business conversations over lunch, make sure that you are writing on the back of that receipt who you were with and what you were talking about as it relates to business. We spend so much money, and a lot of it could be very much related to the business that we're doing. But because we're doing a poor job of tracking our expenses, we're just giving
Throwing
the
that money away.
our money when really we think the IRS is against us. But from a small business perspective, the IRS actually favors small businesses.
Wow. Wow. So is it sufficient in that case? Because I have, a few friends that I'll see them like whip out the receipt and just write down the name and number. And is that enough evidence or enough documentation for you to file your taxes later with those lunch meetings and things like that?
What I do is I write down the names of the people who were at the lunch or at the
Mm-hmm.
dinner, and I write down what we were discussing. So if we were doing marketing strategy, I just write down marketing strategy, planning, or whatever. But yeah, that's all that you need, because really
So
you're
simple.
keeping those receipts in the event that you ever get audited. You want to make
Right.
sure that you have your receipts and that you're able to document how it was a business expense. So yes, that's all you need. You don't need a fancy spreadsheet with all your expenses and what it was for. Whip that receipt out, turn it over on the back, and write on that receipt, and then throw it in your file.
Okay. That's very helpful because sometimes people don't want to spend the extra money on the tools or the software, all the things that they feel like they need. So I think that's really like helpful information to the audience.
And Candace, I want to say something about that, because you're right. And as small businesses, it can be pricey
Yep.
spending money on the tools, but these organizations that I'm speaking of, they will pay for those tools for you. My clients get QuickBooks for free. They get
Wow.
Microsoft Office 365 for free. And if there is a DocuSign,
Yep. All of those things.
yeah, and if there's a specific software that you need for your business to run efficiently, it can be approved where these organizations will pay for it. So it's really important to get plugged in and to be
Yeah.
aware of what benefits are available to you.
That is game changing. Because I, again, no idea that that existed and those types of support existed. Um, because yeah, it was definitely a long journey when I was trying to find all of that information. So I love that.
Mhm.
So entrepreneurs can have unique financial situations. Are there any investment strategies you shared a lot earlier today that were, definitely beneficial for business owners and individuals? But are there any that you think are more tailored to entrepreneurs, or recommended for those business owners versus individuals?
Yeah, I think that one of the main things is looking for investment opportunities that are liquid, where you have access to your cash. Because as entrepreneurs, we face so many unpredictable
Hmm.
cash flow situations that are tied to our business. So we want to make sure that a portion of whatever we're investing in is allocated to liquid assets, so that from a short term perspective, we have the ability to access those funds. Also, just making sure that you retain an emergency business fund. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I know it's not like a glamorous
Right.
investment strategy, but it's so important, because we really want to avoid getting into the cycle of getting buried in debt. A lot
Hmm.
of entrepreneurs fail to really make a lot of profit because there's a lot of debt that's attached to their business. They're constantly having to pay back loans, pay, monthly credit card bills, high interest rates, all of these different things. Having that reserve account to be able to utilize when you need to make large purchases or when there's an emergency is a game changer as it relates to being profitable. So while it may not be, super sexy, having an emergency business fund is critical. And then the last one, and I said this before, but the retirement accounts, maxing out an IRA, getting an annuity. Those are investments that are so important for entrepreneurs because what do we have to depend on when it's time for us to move on and want to enjoy life as we begin to get older? Some of us are not going to have access to Social Security depending on how much time we spend in the workforce or whether or not we're investing in Social Security as business owners. So, what is the plan? What is the strategy for your future? And so, making sure you have an annuity, which those funds can be invested in the stock market. IRAs, you can have mutual funds, just these different things I think are very important and tailored to the needs of an entrepreneur because we don't have pensions in the government that we can depend on.
Absolutely. So piggybacking on to, those strategies, are there any that are more that we need to adapt in different ways based on navigating changes in the economy or the market fluctuations? Are there recommendations that you'd push more towards a certain type of economy or if the market is doing certain things in certain trends? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
So my thoughts are it's really about what your risk tolerance is. The market is always going to go up and it's going to go down
Yep.
and it levels out at the end of the day. Things to keep in mind are when are you going to need to have access to your money? When you're putting money into an investment and it's for long term, you have space to be a little bit riskier because you have time to wait for the market, to balance out. If this is money that you're going to need to have access to potentially, if it's for short term savings, then you don't want to put it into something where there's a huge amount of risk. So it's really about what your goals are and what your risk tolerance is as it relates to choosing those different investments that would work for you and your needs.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm super risk adverse. So I'm one of those people that are like very chicken. If you ask me like where I'm going to put my money, it's going to be in some, very stable, probably very slow growing investment vehicle. And my husband, on the other hand, is very risky. And so I'm trying to like move myself more to the middle of the spectrum. I haven't made it yet though.
Yeah, I would recommend for you something like a ETF that I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
One of those, that are tech packages. And then also REITs, which are real estate investment trust. And those can be
Okay.
purchased on the stock market as well. And a lot of people are just now becoming familiar with REITs, but they've been around forever. And that's all of these spaces that these large corporations are leasing out, you know, these spaces essentially are they have investors that invest in them because they know it's a no-brainer, like
Right.
MGM. Amazon doesn't necessarily own like all of their warehouses and properties. That's a REIT
Wow.
that owns that property. And so you can look that information up, in the various stock platforms and purchase
Wow.
those. And that's a very safe way to invest. And a lot of them pay dividends.
Wow. Yeah, I knew nothing about those things either. So it's like it's amazing all of the
It's a
different
lot.
avenues that are available and really you can cater to what your level of comfort
Yes.
is and if you're, more risk prone, or you like to take bigger risks for higher rewards, you have options for you. And then for those scaredy cats like me, there's
Yeah.
options for me.
It's options for everybody.
All right. Well, I really appreciate this time that I've had with you today to kind of pick your brain and explore. Again, there's so much information that's available out there, and like having someone who can really help you navigate it is invaluable. Because the internet has all the information. If you could try to go learn certain things, but to have someone that can break things down and explain, in regular terms and things or ways that you can understand, like I said, is invaluable. And it's awesome to be able to share this time with you and just kind of think through options for those people who this is a completely new world for them.
Thank
So
you so much.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying thank you so much. Yes, this is so important. So I appreciate you opening up this door and opportunity for me to share, because you're right. There is a lot of information out there, and it's so much more effective to actually have a person who as opposed to going on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and getting your
Right.
financial advice from there.
Right. Because there's so many videos. They sound so like, reasonable, but I'm like, I don't know if I should be taking advice from the TikTok man. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's gonna work out well for me. But before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or key takeaways for our listeners?
Yes, yes, yes. So the first thing is um, continuous learning. Make sure that you are taking the time out to listen into podcasts such as this, making sure that you are tapping into credible online classes or even in-person classes. There's so many wealth advisors, financial advisors who are sharing really, really great information. So make sure that you are investing in yourself. Make sure that you are prioritizing financial discipline. It all starts with mindset. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have financial discipline, you are going to consistently find yourself always trying to get out of debt, always trying to get ahead, always trying to get more money. Make sure that you practice what I called mindful spending. Don't go into the Walmart for some eggs and get a shopping cart. Don't do it. Have
And walk out with
discipline.
half the store in your
Exactly.
car.
That's why I don't get a shopping cart. And I had to learn that for myself. So practice
Right.
mindful spending. And then make sure that you are being strategic with your business and financial planning. Those are three things that I would emphasize as we close out today.
Awesome. For those listeners that are going to be listening to audio only, I also want, I'm going to drop socials and, in all the platforms so that people can reach out and get in contact with you. But for those people that are just going to be listening to the audio, can you share what are the best ways that people can connect with you and reach out to you or follow you?
You can connect with me on both Facebook and Instagram at J. Michelle Robinson. And then please go to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, J. Michelle Robinson, Just Here to Help channel. And you will be able to tune into my Money Monday podcast that comes on every single Monday, 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I am a trusted source who will be talking about all things money and personal finance.
Awesome. And that's every Monday. What was the time again? Sorry.
It's called Money Monday, and it streams through YouTube as well as Facebook.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for sharing your insights on wealth creation through innovation and providing valuable advice for entrepreneurs. And as always, thank you, listeners, for joining us on Glitch, Grind, Glow. Stay tuned for more episodes where we explore innovative approaches to financial success with Jay Michelle. I'm going to cue her up and I'm going to be all over her calendar for the next few months. So stay tuned because we will see her again.
Thank you, Candace.
Thanks, everyone.